When you hear artificial intelligence, do you instantly picture like a super smart robot sidekick? Maybe a C-3PO helping out around the galaxy? Or perhaps something a bit more unsettling, an all-knowing computer like HAL 9000, pulling all the strings. It feels natural to imagine AI as just a super version of us, right? An extension of human smarts, only, faster, bigger, better. But what if that very way we think about intelligence, both our own and the artificial kind, what if it's actually fundamentally flawed? What if our own brains, amazing as they are somehow holding us back from really grasping AI's potential? Today, we're diving into a really fascinating paper that challenges these assumptions. It asks us to maybe rethink what intelligence even means. It's called Human versus Artificial Intelligence, and it's by J.E. Hans Korthagen, G.C. van de Boer-Wissedijk, R.A.M. Blankendahl, R.C. Boonkamp, and A.R. Eichelboom. These are researchers from TNO Human Factors over in the Netherlands, and their work came out in Frontiers in Artificial Intelligence. So our mission for you today is to unpack why this human-centric view might be, well, limiting our understanding of AI.
And how a fresh perspective could unlock some incredible possibilities for human-AI collaboration.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is that the paper jumps right in, highlighting how our discussions about AI, even the really critical stuff like trustworthiness and ethics, they're often colored by what the authors call anthropocentric and anthropomorphistic ideas. Basically, we keep trying to make AI too human-like. We project our own qualities onto it. And that raises a really important question right off the bat. If we're constantly trying to make AI in our own image, are we maybe missing what truly makes it powerful, what makes it unique?
That's such a critical reframe, isn't it? Because if we accept that, it completely changes how we approach AI development and integration. It almost makes us look inward first. And the paper definitely doesn't shy away from that. It suggests that, well, fundamentally, we're probably not quite as smart as we tend to think we are. Ouch.
Haha, yeah, it's a bit humbling.
Right. We look at other animals and yeah, we feel pretty clever. We've built cities, we've gone to the moon. But Korthagen and his team ask us to look beyond that, that relative interspecies perspective, that feeling of being top dog, and instead think about intelligence in more absolute terms, like on a scale from zero intelligence up to whatever's physically possible in the universe.
Right.
And when you look at it that way, well, things get really interesting.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, thinking in those absolute terms, our biological intelligence is actually quite limited. Think about our brain's processing power just as a physical system. Authors like Bostrom and Tegmark have talked about this. There's really no physical law stopping machines from having vastly, vastly greater computing power than our squishy carbon-based brains.
Yeah.
And here's a real wow fact from the paper, or at least related to the ideas in it. Our human brain, incredibly efficient, uses less energy than a standard light bulb. But compare that to a supercomputer trying to match its performance. According to a Scientific American piece, that computer could need enough electricity to power a small village.
Wow. Okay.
Yet, despite our amazing energy efficiency, even a basic digital calculator, like the one on your phone, can perform calculations millions of times more complex than we can manage in our heads. It really puts our biological limits into perspective, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes you wonder then, why are we so good at some things but surprisingly bad at others, like, say, heavy-duty math or processing massive amounts of data? The paper argues it all comes down to evolution. Our brains, this incredible neural wetware, developed over billions of years. But let's be honest, they weren't optimized for doing your taxes or, analyzing complex scientific data.
Exactly. Not built for spreadsheets.
No. They were shaped for essential biological stuff and really complex perceptual motor tasks. Things like finding food, fighting, fleeing danger, finding a mate. Think about tying your shoelaces. Seems simple, right? But that's actually an incredibly complex process. Millions of signals flowing between sensors and muscles, processed in parallel, all without conscious effort. We make it look easy, but it's a massive feat of biological computation.
Indeed. And those ancient neural systems for survival, for perception and movement, they form the bedrock of our intelligence. Our higher cognitive abilities like deliberate, analytic thinking, calculation, abstract reasoning, those are actually quite new on the evolutionary scene, maybe less than 100,000 years old, which in evolutionary time is practically embryonic, as researchers like McBurdy, Brooks, Henschelwood, and Moran have pointed out.
Embryonic, wow.
Yeah. These newer functions are sort of layered on top of our much older survival-focused intelligence. And as a result, our capacity for these purely cognitive tasks is, well, pretty limited. Our working memory, for example, can only handle a tiny stream of information maybe 10 to 50 bits per second. That's it.
That's not much.
Not much at all. And that's why, as Kurteleng showed back in '94, we really struggle with multitasking. Our brains just aren't wired for that kind of parallel cognitive processing like a computer is. We think we multitask, but mostly we're just switching focus really fast, which isn't nearly as efficient.
And it gets even crazier. Not only are we limited, but we're systematically flawed. The paper highlights these ingrained cognitive biases, those mental shortcuts, the glitches in our thinking that often lead us astray. Think about confirmation bias. We all do it. We actively seek out info that confirms what we already believe, and we kind of ignore the rest.
Right. It feels comfortable.
Exactly. These biases, studied extensively by Tversky and Kahneman back in the 70s, are largely unconscious. They're hardwired into our neural networks. They probably served our ancestors well as hunter-gatherers, helping make quick decisions. But in our complex, modern world, they can lead to some really suboptimal choices. Think about investing or political beliefs or even just evaluating news sources.
Absolutely. And the researchers from TNO Human Factors involved in this paper, Kurteleng, Aritzma, and Towit, they emphasize in other work how difficult these biases are to overcome. You can't just take a quick training course and fix them. They're really deeply ingrained.
So putting all this together, our biological limits, our evolutionary baggage, these built-in biases, what does this tell us about AI?
It means that our human-like general intelligence, well, it isn't necessarily the golden standard we've maybe assumed it is. The paper makes a really strong case that general intelligence is not the same as human-like intelligence. That distinction is crucial.
Okay, that's a huge point. General intelligence doesn't have to look like us. So if we accept that, it forces us to look at the fundamental differences between biological brains and artificial systems. You call them apples and super fast, endlessly scalable digital oranges before.
Yeah, something like that.
Our wetware brains are carbon-based. They grew organically. AI is silicon-based, designed, built, totally different substrate.
And think about learning. If you learn a new skill, that knowledge is pretty much stuck inside your head, right?
Right. You can teach others, but the core learning is yours.
But if an AI learns something new, its algorithms, its updated model, can be instantly copied and shared with millions of other systems worldwide, almost instantly.
That scalability and speed of knowledge transfer is just fundamentally different.
Yeah.
And then there's the raw processing speed itself. Human nerve signals. Max out around 120 meters per second, fast for biology, but
nothing compared to silicon. Exactly. AI systems operate at nearly the speed of light. We're talking orders of magnitude faster, as folks like Siegel and Sipu have detailed. Plus, AI systems can talk directly to each other, machine to machine. They can integrate their algorithms, share data perfectly without misunderstandings. Think about autonomous cars coordinating at an intersection. Gerla and others have explored this. No hesitation, no misinterpretation like human drivers might have.
Perfect communication.
And unlike us, AI can be updated, upgraded, scaled up almost without physical limits. We can't just swap out parts of our brain for better ones.
Right. This leads us to Moravec's paradox, which you mentioned, from Hans Moravec back in '88. It's such a cool idea. It explains why computers crush grandmasters at chess or manage complex logistics, but then struggle with things a toddler finds easy, like recognizing a cat or, yes, tying a shoelace.
Precisely. Moravec's point was, it is comparatively easy to make computers exhibit adult-level performance on intelligence tests or playing checkers, and difficult or impossible to give them the skills of a one-year-old when it comes to perception and mobility.
So what we find easy perception, movement, is computationally incredibly hard for machines. And what we find hard logic, math, is relatively easy for them. It's flipped.
Exactly, flipped. Our perceptual motor intelligence is amazing. We recognize patterns instantly, like seeing a whole object faster than its parts. That's the object superiority effect Weisstein and Harris showed. Our cognitive stuff, though, that's the new trick for us evolutionarily. It's not necessarily intrinsically difficult, as Moravec put it. We just haven't had billions of years optimizing for it.
Okay.
So the paper argues chasing this idea of a single human-level artificial general intelligence, or AGI, it might be a bit of a red herring. Maybe not the most useful goal right now. Instead, maybe we should focus on AI systems that complement us, that fill in our gaps and leverage our strengths, making the combined human-AI team much stronger.
A hybrid approach.
Right. AI is brilliant at logic, analysis, computation, handling huge data sets, applying rules consistently, like ethical principles, maybe, and probabilistic reasoning. Cortelling and others discussed this back in 2018. Humans, on the other hand, excel at dealing with novelty, unforeseen situations, complex social interactions, understanding nuance in language and emotion.
So it's not about replacement, it's about partnership with different kinds of intelligence, which means the future is probably less about one HAL 9000 and more about lots of specialized narrow AI systems working together and with us.
That seems far more probable and frankly more beneficial in the near term. Think about technologies like OpenAI's GPT models, which T.B. Brown and colleagues showed can learn various language tasks from just a few examples.
Yeah, incredibly versatile within their domain.
Exactly. These specialized AIs for language, for image recognition, for scientific modeling, for logistics. As Peters and colleagues explained, these specialized systems, especially when interconnected, are what will really have a groundbreaking impact. We're already seeing it, even if it's sometimes invisible.
Okay, but what about trust? That seems like a big hurdle, especially if these things are black boxes.
That's a huge challenge, absolutely. Deep learning AI often makes decisions without being able to clearly explain its reasoning in a way that makes intuitive sense to us humans. Arben Belka made this point well. It's the black box problem.
Right. How can you trust something if you don't know why it did what it did?
Well, here's the interesting counterpoint the paper raises. How good are we at explaining our own decisions? Our conscious mind doesn't always have full access to why we feel or decide something, as Lisa Feldman Barrett's work suggests. A lot happens under the hood.
That's a fair point. We rationalize after the fact sometimes.
We do. So the researchers suggest maybe demanding human-like explanations from AI isn't always the right approach. It might even hold back AI's potential, as Wertkoven and others argued. Instead, maybe our trust should be primarily based on objective, verifiable performance. Rigorous testing, validation. Like how we trust an airplane. Most of us don't understand aeronautical engineering in detail.
Not at all.
But we trust the system because it has a proven track record of safety and performance based on objective data and rigorous checks.
Okay, so trust through proven results and verification, not necessarily human-like reasoning. So then, how do we make this human-AI collaboration actually work? Effectively, safely?
The paper really champions something called intelligence awareness, essentially training for us humans, training to understand the unique characteristics, the capabilities, and the limitations of AI systems, but without projecting our human assumptions onto them, without those anthropocentric biases.
So it's more than just learning how to use an AI tool.
Much more. It's about understanding the AI brain, how it processes information, its memory, its own specific kinds of biases, which are different from ours. Remember, its ethical parameters, its security vulnerabilities. It's about developing the judgment to know when to rely on AI's strengths, its speed, its data processing, its consistency, and when human judgment or empathy or creativity is essential.
Learning when to lead and when to follow the AI's lead based on the task.
Exactly. It's about building that sophisticated understanding for effective teamwork.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What does this all mean for you listening? This deep dive into the Cortelling and colleagues paper from TNO Human Factors, published in Frontiers in Artificial Intelligence, it offers some really powerful takeaways, doesn't it?
Definitely. I think key takeaway one is human intelligence, remarkable as it is, isn't the ultimate golden standard. Our thinking has limits, it has biases, shaped by millions of years of evolution for survival, not necessarily for today's world.
Right. We need a bit of humility about our own smarts. And key takeaway two.
That artificial intelligence is fundamentally different. Different structure, speed, connectivity, scalability. Moravec's paradox really highlights this. Understanding these core differences is absolutely key for working together effectively. It's not just a better version of us.
Apples and digital oranges.
Yeah.
Got it. And the third takeaway.
That the most impactful future, at least for now, isn't about creating one single human-like AGI, but about leveraging lots of multiple narrow AIs, specialized tools. And our focus should be on building this intelligence awareness in ourselves so we can collaborate smartly and safely with these non-human systems, trusting their objective performance when it's warranted.
So if we can embrace this broader view, be a bit more humble about ourselves, and really get the unique strengths of AI, the possibilities seem huge. Solving complex global challenges, maybe.
Absolutely. Combining the best of both worlds, our adaptability and context understanding, with AI's speed and analytical power.
It leaves us with a really interesting thought to ponder, doesn't it?
I think so. If AI can help us recognize and maybe even overcome some of our own deep-seated cognitive biases, Just think about that. What long-standing human problems we've struggled with due to our own flawed thinking, might we finally be able to tackle with more clarity, more objectivity, and maybe more success?